Hi, all. Hope everyone's doing all right. So today I want to cover a couple different subjects with you. So this video is going to be a little bit longer than what I like to do, but there's a lot of things to cover, and you guys have questions, so I want to make sure and answer that. Uh, the first thing that is really important, and I've put announcements up, and I want to repeat, is whenever I ask you to comment on a thought or an idea or something I want you to just reflect on, I want you to use at least 150 words. This is an arbitrary number, but the reason that I do it is because it's online, and the only way that I get you to interact, normally in the classroom, I have you talk, I'd ask you questions, we can explore things, but you have to do this on your own on an online class. And so 150 words is a good amount where I know that you at least had to make something up, had to think of something and write it down, and at least 150 words forces you to otherwise just write yes, no, and not really give any consideration. So that's what I'm doing. If you get partial credit on something, it's because you didn't write 150 words. Do I go and check to see if it's exactly 150 words? Sometimes, because sometimes the answer is not well thought out, and then it looks like there's a lot of words, but it's not quite 150. And since that's part of my grading metric, then I can justify not giving you the full credit. So just think it through. If it's a good, thoughtful answer, if it's 100 words, 110 words, I'm not going to take off the points. I just want you to think. In this class, that's my goal, have you think. Also, I've mentioned this a couple times, and please just note this. The grade book is glitchy. It's just set up that way. So you might put in the correct answer and it gives you a 0, especially the fill in the blank answers. I can't really set it up where there's some way that it can grade you for the correct answer because everyone's considerations and conclusions are different. So I have to go behind and update the grade. Now, the thing I want you to do is at some point before the end of the semester, if you have a 0 where you've done the work, it's showing 0, then please let me know because I need to update that. I want you to have the right grade. And even if it in the assignment it gave you the correct grade, but then in the grade book it shows a 0 or not the correct grade, let me know and I'll go and fix it as quickly as I can. I do that a couple times a week, so I try to stay on top of it, but it does help me out for you to let me know if there's a grade that needs to be adjusted. So thank you for letting me know, but just don't add the extra commentary like it's the grade book. You're doing good. I'll stay on top of that. Now, innovation analysis. Let me take a few more minutes to talk about that. So each week you have an innovation analysis, and the week coordinates with the number that is on that web page, and I have a link so you can go and so for instance this week it is physics. So we're week 3, number 3 on there is physics, and it's the equation E equals mc squared. We're looking for the A in each of these innovations. Remember, the premise of this class is that how is arts relevant to you? Why is it important? And in our case, arts is innovation. And where is the innovation? And the reason, just quickly to say, the reason innovation is synonymous with arts is because there's a creative moment. There's a moment where you have to create. Imagine something, think of the solution, and then make it happen. And that's the creation process. That's the art. So this week we have E equals mc squared. Well, when it asks who's the initial innovator, that's going to be Albert Einstein. And in 1905, Albert Einstein imagined this equation which turned physics upside down. It redefined the world. It gave us insights and guidance that we'd never had before, and it's still influencing us. So where's the A? Well, as far as the formula, Einstein first had to imagine what the issue was, what the question was. And it's fascinating to me because the solution is the easy part. The hard part is imagining the question. So Einstein imagined this question and started theorizing on what would be the solution and how there could be a solution. And the formula is simply explaining his ideas. So the first thing that he did, so where we're looking for the A in the innovation is from the question, the issue. The solution is E equals mc squared. And what was the A? And here's the amazing thing about it. It's taken years and years to create the explanation, to create the empirical test, the evidence to prove Einstein's theory. And each test over years goes back and proves what he imagined and saw in 1905. And one real example of that is in 2015, so about 5 years ago, we actually measured the collision of two black holes. So 100 years later, someone finally figured out how to create a test that could prove that black holes collide and actually measure that. And I'm not going to go into the details of what that experiment looks like or how they did that, but that was that was the innovation, like figuring out how to make this real. And that's exactly the innovation in art. If I walk up to a canvas with a palette of paint and I have an idea, how do I make it real? I create. I paint on that canvas. That's that's the innovation. Now, in the innovation analysis, I see that a lot of you are, some of you are doing a great job on answering the questions. A lot of you are not putting a lot of thought into it. So when I ask who the innovator is, don't put the government or something general. I want to know specifically. You have to do a little research, look it up, go and do your Wikipedia. It's okay in this case because what I'm trying to do is get you to consider the subject. All right, enough on that. When you contact me, please make sure and put your class number that you're in. You guys are 18008 and 18010. It just helps me. I have 100 students. I have 5 different classes. And even though I recognize your name and I know you're in my class, I don't know which class you're in. It just speeds things up for me. So especially as we're doing things digitally and I'm corresponding you via email, that's very helpful for me. So please include your class number every time. Even if you email me 3 times in the same day, always put your class number because I will get to it at different times and it's just helpful. So if you could do that. The Mona Lisa, I just wanted to go back. I might have already commented on this, but the Mona Lisa exercise was having you, and I do remember I've already talked about this, but it's having you explore, use a different part of your brain and look at something differently, look at it in more depth, try to recreate it. It doesn't matter whether you're artists. And by the way, some of you are very talented artists, so thank you for sharing your art with me is really nice. But you're not graded on that. If you did Mona Lisa as a stick figure, you would still get the grade. I would just like you to see that you saw the details and try to recreate it as best you can. I can't draw, but it doesn't mean I'm not creative, and it doesn't mean I don't innovate. The airplane exercise, I know that I did a video on that, and I'm still looking for your discussion on that around what is innovation? Was it cheating to crumple up a piece of paper? Just so you can experience the innovation process and the limitations and everything that goes with that, and then just reflect on it a little bit. Finally, the Vitruvian. So this week you have the innovation analysis. You have the Vitruvian exercise that I just put up, and seems like you have something else, but I'll come back on that if I need to. But this week you have the Vitruvian Man. I actually, if you read in the exercise, it's pretty much what I would say and will say here is Vitruvian was an architect that during the Renaissance time that he figured that he wanted to standardize the size of things. So, before this, people would build doors at whatever size they want, or windows and the height of the ceiling. And Vitruvian stepped back, which is just part of the creation process. And he's like, what are we building these structures for, and who are we building them for? And in every case, unless it's a doghouse or a cat den, you're building it for people. So he looked around and said, well, can we standardize the measurements of people? And so that's where the Vitruvian Man comes in. So years and years later, Leonardo da Vinci drew the Vitruvian Man, which now is the reason we know of Vitruvius. And Leonardo da Vinci drew the Vitruvian Man as the perfect proportions, the perfect person. And so noting that the length of your arm, how it proportionally compares to the rest of your body, the height of your torso, your legs, and everything. So he was reinterpreting Vitruvius' work. But what you're doing with this, and this goes to the idea of design thinking, is considering everything. So because Vitruvius decided to build everything based on the standard human, then doors became a standard size. With the doors, and aside, what's really interesting is the airline industry has been struggling for decades now because of this, that as people were getting taller and we're getting wider. And so therefore the seats that are in airplanes are getting smaller for us. And that's very important because airlines, specifically airlines in this case, rely on how many people they can put in the airplane to pay for the time that it takes to fly someplace, the gas involved, amount of people, and all that kind of thing. And so as we're getting more and more uncomfortable in our seats, airlines, for good customer service, needs to make the seats bigger to accommodate us now, which means they put less people on the airplane, which means now it's harder to pay for the fuel to get to wherever they're going. And this is a legitimate thing, and it's something the airlines have been dealing with for, like I said, a couple decades now. So what your exercise is to identify, I'm looking for the direction. I didn't bring them in here. But you want to identify the sequence of things that are connected and how one thing connects another. Now, the example that I use and I will post is cars. The reason cars are the size that they are is because of people, just like Vitruvius, as far as the size of our house and everything in it, and once again, chairs, desk, the height of TV screens, everything. And so cars, to accommodate 2 or 4 or 6 or whatever people, is the size that it is. Now, once we standardize the size of cars, which, by the way, went even before that, because you had cart and buggies and horses, so roads had to become a certain size. And now, if you notice, cars fit on roads. Well, it's which came first? Well, roads actually in this case came first, but the width of a road. A developer who's a friend of mine creates communities, and one of the things that he does is he makes the roads narrower. I feel like I might have mentioned this before, but he makes the roads narrower because he wants people to drive slowly through the neighborhood. And he builds a lot of walkways because he'd prefer people to walk. So he's actually, and this is called affordance in design terms, but he's literally dictating and nudging people how they live in this community. So he imagines that instead of driving through the community and not enjoying it and not being a part of it, he'd rather people stop, get out of their cars and walk and interact with each other and talk. And he literally, in his construction, dictates this. So once again, my example, you start with the car, the size of the car, then that dictates the size of the roads. It dictates parking lots, like how many cars can you get in a parking lot? And then that even goes to, what's the parking lot for? Is it for a movie theater? Is it for an office building? Will people come and go? Like grocery stores, they need a certain amount of parking spaces, but they know people aren't going to be there for 20 or 30 minutes. So therefore, they don't need as much, because even though there might be 1,000 people that come to their store in a day, there'll only be 30 or 40 there at any given time. So see, these things all build on each other, and they all are interconnected, and they all dictate the design and what you have to think about as you innovate these different things. How strong does a bridge need to be? Well, how much does a car weigh, and how many cars will be on that bridge at any given time? And in my example, I'll list out. And so I'll take this metaphor and extend it out for you just so you can see my example to give you some guidance on your exercise. The way you're graded is how many steps, how many sequences you can get that are interconnected. And I don't have the grading rubric in front of me, but I think it maxes out at 10, like 8 to 10 is an A, and say 5 to 7 is a B. Once again, it's in the exercise, so reference that. If it's not, feel free to email me with a question, and I'll make sure and post it. All right, so I've gone way too long for this. That's what we got going on this week. Hang in there, guys. Just one other quick thing I'll say. Remember, this course, even though I grade weekly, is still self-paced. So if you're having a hard time right now and you need to delay and wait a little bit and then submit your assignments later in the semester, that's fine. A week or two down the road, that's fine. But I'll put a 0 this week, and then as soon as you submit it, I'll update the grade. And if I haven't, then make sure and email and say, hey, Scott, I got this in. Can you make sure that my assignment's graded? So pace it yourself, but I strongly encourage you to stay up on it because, man, you don't want to try to do all the work in 1 week, the last week of the class, and also the quality is going to go down. And if you remember, or just as a reminder, this class is more about considering things. It's an introduction to art. It's an introduction to innovation. It's an introduction to A. And so we're not doing rocket science here, no hard formulas, but I do ask you to think and consider and then express it for me. So, and also if you ever on the discussion boards, make sure you post your initial post and then respond to 2 other people with at least 150 words to get the full credit. So you guys have a great week. I hope everything's okay for you. I hope you're safe and healthy. And please keep those questions and concerns coming at me. And when I need to, I'll make sure and post videos and send announcements, which explains everything. So you guys have a great day. Have a great week. We'll see you online.